Hello and welcome to Letters Home, a story of a World War II B-17 pilot from Lowell, Michigan, in his own words. And he just so happens to be my grandpa. I'm your host, Annie Whitlock, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, my dad, Mitch McMahon, and my aunt, Lori Summerfield.
In each episode of Letters Home, we're going to dive into letters written by my dad during his time in World War II that he sent to his parents, siblings, and friends back home in Lowell, Michigan. We'll be reading his own words and giving some context as to what was happening in the world and in Lowell at the time he wrote these.
In this episode, Dad beautifully describes his time in the air, practices aerobatic tricks, and discusses the latest news about the war. And we share highlights from the Michigan-Notre Dame game from 1942.
That's right. And we're going to right off the top welcome our regular guest, Dale Croft. He is here, and he has a correction for us.
I do.
Welcome, Dale.
Welcome. I think it was episode 7 in Flying Blind. I said gyro because I just had lunch instead of gyro. So the instrument that you use to navigate in the plane is a gyro. Maybe Bruce had a gyro after he got back. I don't know.
That could be.
So gyro.
I got to say, we are having to do a lot of Google that will pronounce some of these words for us that we, these instruments that we don't know anything about. We're trying to practice. We definitely don't always get it right. That's for sure. Especially when we're on the mic. And that's the whole topic for today is learning to fly and all the stuff that Bruce is doing at Merced. So we've been talking a lot about his flight training in the last few episodes, but that's definitely what Bruce is writing to his family the most about. He can't reveal a whole lot of specifics, so he kind of talks about what he's doing in the air. And he did that when he was at Tulare and Merced. But he's also such a good writer that he describes these flights like so beautifully, so poetically. So we're going to start with a letter that he wrote to Helen and his brother Bern from November 1st, 1942, in his own words.
I was on a cross country this morning, went the full length of the San Joaquin Valley, and then crossed over some mountains. The trip took 3.5 hours and covered about 450 miles. You sure can cover ground in these ships in a short while. It was a dead reckoning trip, and so we didn't use radios except to clear the tower and check on landing instructions. After I'd cleared this airport, I turned the receiver to the broadcast bands and listened to music. If it wasn't for the monotony of these trips, they'd be a lot of fun. Incidentally, we smoke on these trips. There's no danger of fire as the gas tanks are in the wings and the ships are all metal. The prime is on the instrument panel, but they don't leak, so there's nothing to worry about. About 30 ships go on these trips, but we go at different age hours so that one ship can't follow along behind the other. McKee is one of my roommates, makes me wait for him so that he won't get lost. My HR was 9:05 this morning, and his was at 9:15, so I slowed down to 120, and he bent his throttle and caught me about 20 miles out. Well, it's great fun, and you meet a lot of swell fellas. I'll never regret enlisting in this outfit.
Aw. I don't like the idea of him smoking on the plane, even though he says it's okay. I don't really like that. But and I think I can guess what a dead reckoning trip is. But Dale, do you know? Can you explain a little bit what a dead reckoning trip would be?
Add a little more graphical details to it. Dead reckoning, also called deducted or deduced reckoning, is a navigation technique that uses tools like magnetic compasses, watches, sectional charts, plotters, flight computers to estimate key data and plot the airplane's progress. Magnetic course is tracked from takeoff, factoring in any intentional or wind-induced course deviations. Dead reckoning remains an essential pilot skill for navigating in conditions where electronics may malfunction or fail to be available. It serves as a reliable cross-check of automated position indications.
So it's kind of just not using instruments, and so that's why he can put music on and light a cigarette and just kind of hang out. Just read the instruments.
A calculated guess at where they are.
Okay, interesting.
Or estimation of where they are.
Except McKee is really bad at it, apparently, and always gets lost. All right. Bruce also writes about night formation flying in his own words.
Well, if I'd been so busy, I should have 100 things to write you. My greatest disappointment is that I can't write all of the experiences I'm having. Take, for instance, last night. Night formation flying. No moon, but beautiful stars. Flying wingtip to wingtip. All you can go by is the clearance lights of the leader and his exhaust stacks that give a fluorescent glare. For 2 hours straight, we circle, dive, and climb. always keeping in a perfect formation. During day formation, only inches separate your left wingtip from the other ship's elevators. It's not uncommon to touch each other, although I haven't hit yet. Night formation is flown slightly further apart, although not more than a few feet. If Dad could see the portable generators they have for radio and field lights, etc. Last night we went to an auxiliary field about 30 miles from here. There isn't a power line within 2 miles of the field, but inside 20 minutes, the whole place was lighted.
I like how he's bragging about the generators because he knows Frank would be really interested in the
Dad would
generators,
love that.
power plant. On this letter itself, Bruce has sketched out the formation flying. So he has the planes how they're supposed to look in the formation, just like he sketched out that obstacle course before. So you can see a sketch of what the planes look like flying together in the actual letters that are posted on the Lowell Historical Museum website, of course. And then we'll put it on our Instagram and YouTube as well, because I love to see Grandpa's illustrations of some of the stuff he talks about. So that's very cool. And he's also learning stunts and tricks. So that's really amazing to me that he knew how to do those things. So we're going to read another part of a letter about his flight training from November 15th in his own words.
On the final for air work, we have chandelles, lazy eights, formations, etc. That leaves me plenty of solo time to perfect my aerobatics, snap rolls, slow rolls, reverses, immelmans. I'm really becoming quite good at stunt flying on my own. I learned all these maneuvers at Rankin. They okay my air work after about 15 hours. Here at Basic, I'm getting all these aerobatics down so I have a good precision on them.
So he didn't draw these in the letters. Okay. So I don't know what these are. Not all of them anyway. I figure snap and slow rolls are probably like fast and slow rolling in the plane. And I'm guessing reverses are going backwards, but I don't know, lazy eights. I've never heard of chandelles or immelmans. I don't know how you even pronounce this. Dale, what do you know about these?
Well, a chandelle, which is the French word for candle, is a maneuver designed to show the pilot's proficiency in controlling the aircraft during a steep climbing turn executed to gain altitude while changing direction. The FAA defines the chandelle as a climbing turn beginning from straight and level flight and ending at the completion of 180 degrees of turn and wings level, nose high, attitude at minimum controllable airspeed. The chandelle is a complicated maneuver that involves changing pitch, bank, power so smoothly that a passenger feels comfortable. And if we have flown a lot, which I haven't.
Okay, so that's like when you take off, right?
You have probably experienced that.
And it like tilts and you can
do it,
as they go up.
180 swing while gaining altitude.
So that's called chandelle.
The Immelmann is the term Immelmann turn, named after German World War I fighter ace Lieutenant Max Immelmann. Refers to two different aircraft maneuvers. In World War I, area combat, an Immelmann turn was a maneuver used after an attack on another aircraft to reposition the attacking aircraft for another attack. In modern aerobatics, an Immelmann turn, also known as a roll off the top, is an aerobatic maneuver that results in level flight in the opposite direction at a higher altitude. So it just comes out, swings around, and you come right back down for a repeat attack.
Okay.
They also said the Japanese used that maneuver very well during World War II.
Okay. Yeah, lazy eights, would that just be like going in an eight?
Yeah, we'll have a lot of graphic of these different types of flights on our video production.
Okay.
So.
All right. So maybe you've even experienced these if you've taken a flight anywhere before. That's just cool to think about.
And they thought Tom Cruise and Top Gun and his character that seeing that MiG upside down, they thought that was something. I can't hold a candle.
That's just
to
an
this,
Immelmann.
Right? Yeah.
No big deal. My grandpa could do those.
Can't hold a Chanel.
There we go.
Oh, man. Well, it's time for our segment where we talk about what was going on in the world and in Lowell when Bruce wrote these letters. We're going to start with some war news, since Bruce writes to his parents about the war's progress in a letter from November 5th. So in his own words.
Thursday evening, 5:30, 17:30 airtime. Dear Mother and Dad, I've just been reading the San Francisco Bulletin. I'll bet everyone's talking about the gasoline rationing, right? Well, civilians aren't the only ones who'll suffer. There won't be any traffic on the roads now, so it'll be impossible to get anywhere on our 24-hour pass. The war news looks wonderfully optimistic tonight. Rommel's army in a rout, MacArthur's forces pushing back the Japs, and Stalingrad still holding against the best Germany can send against them. It may take a little time, but the handwriting is on the wall for the Axis. I believe this time the Germans are begging Japan to attack Russia, but they are not doing so well with us, making this sort of movement impossible. Left alone, I believe you'll see the Russians on the offensive in a month or so.
So I did some checking on what Bruce was talking about in this letter, and gas rationing was happening in Lowell, everywhere, but definitely in Lowell. The Ledger reported on it very snarkily too. Like they were very like kind of roll their eyes like, oh, here we go again, gas rationing. But the day before Bruce wrote this letter, Axis Commander Rommel was retreating in northern Africa, despite Hitler telling him to stay until every man was dead. But Rommel was in the process of retreating, so that's why he's saying Rommel's army is in a rout, I think. MacArthur was nearing the end of the Battle of Guadalcanal, and the Japanese were getting ready to leave Papua New Guinea, so I think that's what he's talking about when he's saying MacArthur's forces are pushing back the Japs. I don't like to use that term, but that's what he's saying. And then we learned all about Stalingrad from a previous episode, and Bruce was not too far off about a Russian offensive happening in a few months, because by February, which is just a few months from this letter, the Red Army, the Russian army, was retaking Russian cities that had been captured by the Nazis. So they were coming out of Stalingrad. So we are coming up on 1943 in this story, right? We're at the end of 1942. And a lot of the stuff I read about World War II says that 1943 is sort of like a turning point in the war where the Allies start to take a little more control. Of course, it doesn't end in 1943, but it starts to become a pivotal year, which we know that is the year that Bruce heads over to the Eastern Front. So, yeah, we're getting to that point very soon. So he's talking about, it's really interesting. I don't know, this stuff is really cool to kind of read what he's writing, and then you go check it with other sources, and you're like, oh, that could be what he's talking about.
It was nationwide? Nationwide, the gas ration?
Well,
No.
Dale will tell us about that. It's a good idea. So I wanted to learn more about it because I did see it in the ledger. And, of course, I didn't know if Bruce was referring... Well, he must be talking about in California there was gas rationing, too, because he can't get anywhere. And he does talk about war bonds a lot in other letters, too. And I know that was going on in Lowell. So, Dale, what else can you tell us about what people in Lowell thought about gas rationing and war bonds?
Okay, and gas rationing in early 1942, and I didn't know this, why it even started. So that was very interesting. German U-boats ravaged Allied shipping off the East Coast and in the Gulf of Mexico. Oil tankers were their favorite targets. The Allies needed oil for airplanes, ships, tanks, and to run factories. And the Germans hoped to cut off the supply. It did not take long for a gasoline shortage to develop along the U.S. East Coast. The rationing program began in 17 eastern states on May 15th, 1942, and went nationwide on December 1st, 1942, and it lasted until August 18th, 1945. So it didn't start right away across the country. It started on the East Coast.
So they were reporting on it a couple weeks ahead of time, like get ready for the gas rationing.
Gas rationing began to help the American war effort and to save tires. The U.S. Office of Price Administration, the OPA, issued stickers to determine how much gasoline each person could get. If you got an A sticker, which most car owners will use a gasoline ration card that had 1 unit tabs on the bottom that were punched when used. Along with the card, a windshield sticker with a specific letter was issued. The most popular was A, car sticker, that allowed the car owner to purchase about 4 gallons of gas a week.
Wow.
If you were employed in a factory that supported the war effort, you were issued a B card, while doctors, nurses, farm and construction workers, and male employees were issued a C card, each of which allowed them to buy up to 8 gallons of gas per week. Then there was the M sticker, which is motorcycle drivers received coupons. The T for truck drivers received coupons. The X was the high mileage type jobs, such as traveling salesmen, which received unlimited coupons. And then the rich people and politicians received stickers. There was basically no limits for them, stickers.
Oh.
As far as war bonds, digging into the ledger, I had a little fun finding some unique information that our Lowell citizens did. One was Fran Theater is sponsoring a war bond night on September 29th. So they had a night at the movies that you could buy war bonds. I found a really cool little comic strip. There's two gentlemen talking, and there's an old man with a pipe. And the guy says, "Why are you working again?" And he says, "Because I'm working until the war is over because I need money to buy war bonds." There was another one in pretty much every month of the paper. There was a little ad that says, "What you buy with war bonds." And there's an example here of how much it costs to do a tank. There was examples of how much to do different things. Anyway, the one section was what you buy with war bonds. Then we had war bond sales, about estimate, an article. Lowell area sales received $295,000 worth of war bonds. They fell $12,000 short, so in the month of April, the Lowell State Savings Bank helped put the Lowell over the top. A grand total of $295,000 were collected with war bonds. There was another one called the War Bond Drive Goes Over Big. Citizens of Lowell pledged regular buying. 20 canvassers, I think we talked about that. The Gallants, remember that from a previous episode?
Yeah.
I think this is what they're talking about. It's like 20 canvassers went around the town over the thing, and it says, up to the end of February of this year, a grand total of $88,275 worth of war bonds have been purchased in Lowell. During March and April, the above sum was further augmented by the purchase of 40,000, making a total of $128,675 in May of that year.
What year was that?
This was in 1942.
This is in 1942.
This is in May of 1942.
All right.
Sales of savings stamps. There's another one called savings stamps at the Lowell Post Office during the months of March and April raised $2,993 in saving. So there was savings stamps that you could buy that would go towards bond. There was another article called War Chest Contributions Now Being Received Here as an Investment in Humanity. So there was an article on the purpose of buying war bonds to save humanity. And, of course, in the Ledger, they had full-page articles of talking about how to buy war bonds and what good it would do for the community. There also was a little article along, which was along Main Street when we grew up. It was, we talked about all the little, so-and-so was playing cards here, and, Aunt Betty met Aunt Lou for lunch at whatever. And one of them was a group of 4 or 5 ladies worked together to raise war bond monies, and I can't remember the amount, but there were just little groups of ladies working and little groups at town and stuff. So there was all kinds of things happening in Lowell to support their men overseas. Bruce being one of them, and many others in town. So.
Yeah, that's great. Lowell really showed up.
Yeah, the Ledger was loaded with all kinds of stuff in it.
That's great. Yeah. So in other Lowell news, speaking of Lowell, Bruce wrote about some changes down at the Lowell Light and Power Plant, in his own words.
Sorry to hear you lost Gerald, Dad. At least Kitty and the rest of the gang won't have to fumigate the office every day now. Seriously, though, Gerald was always a pretty good egg, and I always liked him for his loyalty. Well, Carl, I'll fix him therm. We'll probably do a good job with the engines. For gosh sakes, though, don't let him change any rod bearings on the engine.
So this is a cute little snippet that has a ton of questions here. Like, who is Gerald? We don't know. Like, why does he smell bad?
I assumed he was a dog at first.
We did think he was a dog.
But then I realized that people names for dogs that hadn't become popular yet. It didn't sound like Dad would say something about have to fumigate the room after a person left. It didn't sound like something Dad would say. But then I realized that back in those days, people would smoke at work all the time. So this is probably a cigar. I'm guessing Gerald did a lot of cigar smoking.
Okay.
That's my
Could be.
That's my guess.
Could be.
And then again, sorry you lost Gerald. I'm hoping he just retired.
I would guess.
Or got another job, but
I don't think Grandpa would joke about it if he died.
Right.
Like even having to fumigate the office. I don't know. That's such a weird thing to say.
When he added that part about loyalty, I went, a dog. Oh, no.
No.
Okay.
I'll have to ask some of the gentlemen at Lowell Light and Power if they know that gentleman
they remember
next
Gerald.
week.
Or Carl Thurn?
Yeah.
Thurm?
See if
It was hard to
that
read.
name rings a bell to any of them.
It was somewhat hard to read Grandpa's handwriting. Even though he has beautiful handwriting, sometimes you can't tell the RNs from the M's. And this is notable because we get another mention of Kitty.
Oh, yes.
So way back, episode 2, when he wrote one of his very first letters in the Army to Kitty, and now we pop up again. We have another clue that she probably worked at the Lowell Light and Power Plant.
We think
with
we
Frank.
solved it, right?
We think. We are...
Oh, we know we've solved it. We just have to wait for our guest to come in.
Yes, we're going to
tell us.
reveal Kitty's identity very soon. I promise. We're working out some specifics, and we will get to that. But we now know another clue. She worked at the power plant. And fumigated. Apparently, maybe didn't like Gerald's cigars. We can ask
I'm
about
just
that,
guessing
too. We don't
about
know.
the cigar.
That makes
I don't
sense.
know.
That makes sense.
That would make sense.
It could be really bad BO. We really don't know.
Or, yeah,
But
we'll
it doesn't
just
sound
see.
like something Dad would say.
In the same letter, Bruce mentioned a little later on that Michigan versus Notre Dame was playing football, 1942. So, of course, when the Michigan Wolverines national championship is about ready, their national champions are about ready to start their season as we're recording this in a couple of days. So I had to look up this Michigan-Notre Dame game from 1942. And so Notre Dame was ranked number 4 in the country at the time, and Michigan was ranked number 6. So it was a very big deal. They were playing each other. And they had not played each other since 1909. So this was like the
goodness.
revitalization of the rivalry. And it was played at Notre Dame Stadium on November 14th, 1942, and Michigan went there and beat them
Oh, okay.
32-20. What?
Well, you revealed the score.
I
thought
did, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. But yeah, it was exciting. Michigan won. Michigan scored on a fake field goal in the second quarter. That was in the box score. And on a Statue of Liberty play late in the fourth. And
And you can see these.
you can see them, actually. I found video footage of this game. I've been trying to find things that Grandpa watched on streaming, the movies, whatever he's into. Couldn't find it, but thanks to the Bentley Historical Library at the University of Michigan, I was able to find this game. It's a 28-minute long, black and white, silent clip. There's no sound. The camera work is terrible, but you can see the fake field goal, the Statue of Liberty play in the fourth quarter. It's been really quite fun to watch.
Didn't we run a Statue of Liberty play?
Oh,
That's in
of course we
high
did.
school.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure
Sure.
you ran it a
It's-
couple times.
It was a classic from the 40s.
That was a classic.
Yeah. So that was one of their final plays. So anyway, it's kind of fun. High school football is kicking off as we're recording this, and college football is starting. So I thought it was cool that he's like, "How about that game?"
Dale's
How
going to
about
try to get
interesting
it
game?
try to get it up at the end of the video.
Yes, we're going to try to get these video highlights to you somehow in case you want to get sucked into a
for a whole half hour.
hour long football highlight reel.
Single wing.
How
stuff.
big of a Michigan fan are you if you're going to watch? I mean,
There you go.
I consider myself a fan. I couldn't get through all 28 minutes. I had to fast forward a little. But it's a good clip. So we're going to finish today with a full letter that Bruce wrote to his family on November 6th from the flight line again. So in his own words.
Friday night. Dear folks, I'm enclosing a letter that I wish you would forward to Jack. I've often thought of writing to him, but when I have had the time, it seems I've never been sure of his address. Now that he's intending to get married, I would like to send this letter to him. As usual, I'm writing on the flight line. I will finish my night flying tonight. That's the way we do our flying. We finish each time group separately. I've already finished my cross country. Next will come my night cross country. During the day, we are now on formation work, and it's really a lot of fun, especially when we fly with just one wing just about over the other ship's greenhouse. It sounds dangerous, but really isn't if you're on your toes. With a little luck, I think we'll get out this weekend. At least our time is up enough to give us a day off. So if it doesn't rain tomorrow. Your letter came this afternoon and the pictures were swell. You got some pretty good shots on your way back, didn't you? The gal you spoke of was a girl I met in Fresno. She goes to Fresno State and is a darn nice kid. She invited me to a sorority party last weekend, but I had to fly, so it was impossible to go. One thing about this Army is if you have to break a date, the girl usually understands. So, you are kind of figuring on that extra room. I don't suppose that building material is too easy to get right now. If you're planning on putting the piano up there, I guess it will really take quite a bit of support. I'll still bet the next time I see the house on the hill, it will have an extra bedroom in it. The dispatcher had to use his typewriter, so I'll say goodnight. I'm back from my night flight, and I'm going to head to bed. Frisco Bay was beautiful tonight. All my love, J. Bruce.
Aw. So at the top of this letter, he talks about the Jack who's getting married. And this must be Jack Lally, right? So
Yes.
Jack Lally
Yeah,
is
gotta be.
Bruce's first cousin. They were born the same year. They even passed away the same year. They both went to CMU together. Like, they were very close, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And they went to war. Not necessarily, they weren't totally together, but they enlisted at the same time, right?
Yes.
And Jack has a crazy war story that we're going to have to bring up with his family at some point. That could be a whole separate podcast, I think.
Right.
It is a book, actually. So he's talking about Jack's wedding. I guess I didn't realize. Yeah, it makes sense that he must have gotten married when he was in the Army, too. Mm-hmm. Do we know who he married? I know Dad does. We'll see.
Brother Mike would knows.
And of course, yes, and Cousin Annette is going to be. Like,
Yes, I'm
of course.
embarrassed. I was
Annette.
going to look that up. And I
Annette,
forgot
if you're
to look
listening, let us know. No,
Oh,
of
yeah.
course she's listening.
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll figure that out. But yeah, that's kind of neat. Like, he wants to hear from his cousin or whatever, and his close friend. And then Bruce had a girl he was talking to from Fresno, a date. He didn't write her name in here, so I don't think she can be that important. But it seems like his parents seem to know who she was because they were asking about her, like that girl you spoke of. This is where I wish we had the other end of the letter. But of course we don't. But
Yeah.
I want to know, like, what did Frank and Lotta write about this girl from Fresno? And I thought it was cute. Like, they don't mind if you break a date if you're in the
Yes.
Army.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand.
And then I want to know about that extra room a little bit, too. So before, when I had laughed about Bruce saying he wanted to, go back and live at home with his wife, and you said, well, it was like an apartment. Mm-hmm. And so he's talking about, is that what he's talking about? This extra room, like adding on to the upstairs
I think so.
apartment?
Yeah.
Above the garage, yeah.
So did Bruce live there before he went to the war? Was that like where he stayed at Frank and Lotta's? Do you know that? Or did he have his own like bedroom?
Good
or
question.
What'd
Good
they
question.
do with
I
that?
don't know. I'm not sure.
I want to say yes for some reason, but I don't know.
Okay. So, yeah, he's talking. His room is
More
going to look.
mysteries.
He leaves and they're going to redecorate.
Well, they're going to add. They're going
And
to
add
that.
on. Yeah.
That house got added on to many times.
Oh,
and
really?
still
Okay.
has.
I want to find out what over the other ship's greenhouse meant. I'm going to do some digging into that this
I'm
week.
guessing it means maybe the
I
glass
kind
top.
of have an idea what it is.
I think
but
so.
Find out.
Yeah. Yeah, there's all these little nuggets in these letters that are really fun.
There's a lot of them in this one.
To
Yeah.
pick apart, for sure. And this letter is typed again. So we have another typed letter, but the end of it is handwritten. So it's kind of funny. You can, of course, see this on the website and in the YouTube. But when he says the dispatcher needs his typewriter back, the couple sentences after that is handwritten. So like he finishes it back, in his tent or wherever, handwriting it. So yeah, so it's cool. We'll have some typewritten letters, some handwritten letters, all kind of mixed together depending on where he's deciding to write. But I can just picture him like waiting to go up in his plane, borrowing a typewriter, writing things out while he's bored, waiting for his turn to go. I don't know. That's kind of cool. All right, that's probably enough for us today, huh? We'll figure out. We have some more mysteries to
Yes,
figure
we have
out.
more mysteries than questions answered this week.
In our next episode, it is Thanksgiving, 1942. So Bruce, of course, is spending it at Merced, and so he writes some letters about that. So we'll be talking about Thanksgiving next time. Thank you for listening to Letters Home. We hope you continue to listen as we go through Bruce's story. You can listen to Letters Home on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the Lowell Historical Museum website and YouTube channel. New episodes drop every Thursday. The Lowell Historical Museum has digitized versions of Bruce's letters so you can read them in full, along with primary sources for most of the people, places, and events we've talked about here today, plus more. You can also follow the Lowell Historical Museum on Facebook and the Letters Home podcast on Instagram at Letters Home Lowell. Thank you to Roger McNaughton for our podcast music and to WRWW 92.3 FM for letting us record in their studio at Lowell High School every week. Tune in or stream WRWW at lowellradio.org. See you next time.